She placed an advertisement in the newspaper. It read, "Comely widow who owns a large farm in one of the finest districts in LaPorte County, Indiana, desires to make the acquaintance of a gentleman equally well provided, with view of joining fortunes. No replies by letter considered, unless the sender is willing to follow an answer with a personal visit." The men who answered that advertisement came from across the American Midwest. They were Norwegian immigrants, mostly men who felt a cultural kinship with the comely widow who wrote in their language and understood their world. They packed their life savings into their coats. They bought train tickets to Indiana. They arrived at a farmhouse on the edge of LaPorte, where a large, strong, well-presented widow welcomed them with home-cooked food and warm conversation. Not a single one of them ever left that farm alive. Her name was Belle Gunness, and by the time anyone understood what she had been doing it for over 20 years, and the question of whether she is still alive today has never been fully answered. Brynhild Paulstatter Storseth was born on November 11, 1859, in Selbu, Norway, a small rural community in the mountains of central Norway, the daughter of a stonemason and his wife, the youngest of 8 children. By her own account, she suffered a miscarriage in her late teens after being kicked in the stomach by a young man at a dance, an incident she blamed for permanent physical and psychological damage. Whether this was true or fabricated, it was the beginning of a pattern. Belle Gunness would spend her entire adult life constructing narratives that made her the victim rather than the perpetrator. She arrived in the United States in 1881, aged 21, and made her way to Chicago where her sister lived. In 1884, she married a man named Mads Albert Sorensen. They opened a small confectionery store together. The store burned down. They collected the insurance. Their house burned down. They collected the insurance again. 2 of their children died from what was recorded as acute colitis, a condition that, as investigators would later note, shares its symptoms almost precisely with strychnine poisoning. And then, on the one day in 1900, when Mads Sorensen's 2 life insurance policies happened to overlap, the one day on which his death would trigger a payout from both simultaneously, Mads Sorensen died of what his doctor recorded as heart failure. His family demanded an inquiry. No charges were filed. Belle Gunness collected both insurance payouts and moved to Indiana. I want to pause on the children for a moment, because in every retelling of Belle Gunness, the focus is on the men, the suitors, the farmhands, the wealthy Norwegians who answered her advertisements. But she is believed to have poisoned her own children for insurance money. Children she gave birth to. That detail is not given the weight it deserves. It tells you that for Belle Gunness, there were no boundaries, not biology, not love, not the most fundamental human protection instinct. Everyone around her was a potential transaction. With her insurance money, Belle Gunness purchased a 48-acre farm on the outskirts of LaPorte, Indiana. In 1902, she married a man named Peter Gunness, a widower with a young daughter. 8 months after the wedding, Peter Gunness was dead. Belle told the coroner that a meat grinder had fallen from a high shelf and struck him on the head as he reached for something, causing fatal injuries. The coroner recorded accidental death. Belle collected his life insurance. Peter's daughter from his previous marriage later stated that she had heard Belle say, just before Peter's death, "Peter, you will soon be meat for my meat grinder." This statement was not investigated. Belle was now a twice-widowed woman with a farm, several children including a foster daughter named Jenny Olsen, and an established reputation in LaPorte as a hard-working, pious, community-minded woman. Neighbors described her as strong, unusually physically powerful for a woman, capable of doing farm work that most men found difficult. She butchered her own hogs. She dug in her own fields. She was entirely self-sufficient. What her neighbors did not know was that she had begun placing advertisements in Norwegian-language newspapers across the Midwest. And the men who answered those advertisements were about to arrive at LaPorte one by one and never leave. Belle Gunness operated with the efficiency of a business. Her system was consistent, refined, and almost impossible to detect from the outside. Step 1. Place a Lonely Hearts advertisement in Norwegian-language newspapers emphasizing her farm, her wealth, and her desire for a financially stable companion. Step 2. Correspond extensively with respondents, building an intimate epistolary relationship, always emphasizing that any serious candidate must be willing to bring their savings to the farm for a personal visit. The letters made it clear: come in person, bring money, tell no one. Step 3. Receive the visitor, provide warm hospitality, make them feel at home. Step 4. Administer strychnine, most likely dissolved in coffee or food. Step 5. Once the victim was incapacitated, bludgeon them to ensure death. Step 6. Dismember the body in the basement, dispose of the remains, burying some in the hog pen, butchering some and feeding the flesh to her hogs, burning some in the farmhouse stove. Step 7. Write a letter to the victim's family explaining that their relative had visited briefly and then moved on to Canada, to California, to somewhere far away where letters would naturally take time to arrive. The men who came to her farm included Ole Budsberg, Thomas Lindboe, Henry Garholt, Olaf Svenherud, John Moe, Olaf Lindblom, and Andrew Helgelian. None was ever seen again. One man, George Anderson, did escape. He woke in the night at the Gunness farmhouse to find Belle standing over his bed holding a candle, staring at him with an expression he later described as so terrifying that he dressed immediately, left the farm without a word, and never returned. He spent years telling people what he had seen. Nobody believed him. George Anderson escaped because something woke him at the right moment. One man out of how many who arrived at that farm and stayed asleep. What is the difference between George Anderson and the men who did not survive? One moment of wakefulness. One instinct that told him to leave without waiting for an explanation. He lived because of a feeling he could not name. The others died because they trusted a woman who had spent years perfecting the art of being trustworthy. By early 1908, the system was beginning to crack. A man named Asle Helgelian had been searching for his brother Andrew, who had written home excitedly about his visit to the Gunness farm and then gone completely silent. Asle wrote to Belle. She replied dismissively. He wrote again. She contacted her farmhand and sometime lover Ray Lampher and told him something had to be done. On the night of April 27, 1908, the Gunness farmhouse burned to the ground. Inside the ruins, investigators found the bodies of Belle's 3 children, Myrtle, Lucy, and Philip. And beside the children, the body of a woman, large, heavy-set, wearing Belle's clothes, but missing its head. The head was never found. Investigators initially assumed it was Belle Gunness, that she had died in the fire along with her children. They obtained her teeth from her dentist and matched them to dental fragments found in the ashes. Case closed. Belle Gunness, serial killer, deceased in the fire she had perhaps accidentally caused. Except almost immediately, nothing added up. The headless woman was significantly smaller than Belle. Belle was known to be unusually large and physically powerful. She weighed, by various accounts, around 280 pounds. The headless woman weighed considerably less. Where was the head? And why, when investigators began digging in the grounds of the farm at Asle Helgelian's insistence, did they find human remains buried across the property in multiple locations? Investigators dug, and they kept digging. After further investigations of the property, the remains of 11 other people were found buried on the property, the bodies decomposed to the point that they could not be identified. Body parts, bone fragments, remains buried in the hog pen, in the garden, in the cellar. Asle Helgelian identified his brother Andrew from a distinctive watch. Others were identified from personal items, a ring, a belt buckle, a fragment of clothing that a family recognized. Many were never identified at all. The confirmed victims number between 14 and 24, by most historians' estimates, though some believe the true figure may approach 40 when unidentified remains and suspected earlier victims are included. Ray Lampher was arrested and convicted of arson. In his final confession before dying in prison in 1909, Lampher stated that Belle had asked him to burn the farmhouse with her children inside, and that she had not died in the fire. He claimed she had decapitated an unidentified woman to use as her body double, staged the scene, and simply walked away. LaPorte police received reports of Belle Gunness sightings for decades afterward, in California, in Mississippi, in Chicago itself. None were ever conclusively confirmed. None were definitively ruled out. The children are what I keep coming back to in this case. Belle Gunness may have escaped. She may have walked away from Indiana in 1908 and lived for decades under a new name, in a new place, as someone completely different. If she did, she left 3 children dead in a burning house, children she put there deliberately to make her disappearance convincing. Whether she killed for money, for freedom, or for the pure functional logic of eliminating every connection to her old life, those children paid the price for it. Myrtle was 11. Lucy was 9. Philip was 5. They are the part of this story that never gets enough space. In 2007, nearly a century after the farmhouse fire, forensic anthropologists exhumed the remains from Belle's LaPorte grave and conducted DNA testing. They hoped to determine conclusively whether the headless body found in the ruins was Belle Gunness or someone else. The DNA results were inconclusive. The degradation of the remains over 100 years made a definitive match impossible. The case was neither confirmed nor resolved. Belle Gunness's death remains officially unverified. There is no confirmed sighting of her after 1908. There is no confirmed death record. There is a grave in LaPorte with her name on it, containing remains that science cannot conclusively identify. She arrived in America in 1881 with nothing and spent the next 27 years building a system for taking everything from the people who trusted her: their money, their hope, their lives. And then, in the spring of 1908, she either died in a fire she may have set herself, or she walked away from everything she had built and vanished into a country big enough to hide in. The headless body in the ruins was someone. We do not know whose body it was. We do not know what happened to the head. We do not know where Belle Gunness went, or whether she went anywhere at all. We simply know what she left behind, and what she left behind was enough to fill a cemetery. The men who answered her advertisement came because they wanted a home. They wanted companionship. They were Norwegian immigrants in a foreign country who saw a letter written in their language by a woman who understood their world and invited them into it. They brought their savings. They bought train tickets. They arrived at a farmhouse in Indiana, believing that something good was waiting for them there. Ole Budsberg, Thomas Lindboe, Henry Garholt, Olaf Svenherud, John Moe, Olaf Lindblom, Andrew Helgelian, and Myrtle Gunness, 11 years old. Lucy Gunness, 9. Philip Gunness, 5. Their mother either died in the fire that killed them, or she set that fire and left them in it. We do not know which. What we know is that they deserve to be remembered by name, not as footnotes in the story of the woman who killed them. If this case stayed with you the way it stays with me, subscribe to Vault of Crime. Every week we cover the cases that deserve more than a headline. We will see you in the next one.